Hello everybody, and welcome to the course on App Development, Gamification and Project Management of the project Gamification ICT to Play and Play to Learn, co-funded by the Erasmus Plus program of the European Union. During this first lesson, we are going to talk about the key concepts in gamification. During this class, we are covering different aspects that we have to take into consideration when we first want to apply a gamification design. These 4 questions are the most important in any gamification project. First of all, we're going to learn what's the main difference between gamification and games, because we are talking about gamified apps, but not necessarily games. We'll go through this afterwards. Second, we have to understand what are the implications of working on motivational design, which is the psychological basis for gamification. We are going to operate with motivations, so we have to understand which are the different motivations people might have and how to use it into our app. Then we are going to go through the different elements that compose the techniques of game design. We will cover this in further sessions, so we are only stating some of the categories in this first lesson. Finally, we have to take into consideration that design must be systematic to be effective. So we are going to see together some of the main gamification frameworks that they are available for us to use in order to consider them for our own design. So let's start with a definition. What is gamification? By gamification, we understand applying the techniques of play in different contexts and projects in order to boost motivation, concentration, effort, loyalty, or other positive values common to all the games. We are talking about the young people here because they will be probably the main target we will have. But we have to understand that play is a natural attitude in human beings, not only in children or youngsters, but also in grown-up adults. Gamification is not the same as games, and games are not the same as having fun, although these 3 ideas are really integrated. Here we have different examples. First of all, a band playing live. When we talk about vocational professions like being a musician, there's a lot of fun involved in the project of learning, performing, rehearsing, and finally sharing your creations or your performance with the public. These kind of activities are fun by themselves. This is why some games, like Rock Band, have decided to imitate these activities from real life in order to make people have fun. Okay, so what's the difference? When we are playing with a band, our purpose is to share our artistic performance with the public. We might also have an economic objective if we are musicians for a living, and there's an artistic motivation that goes below everything. Okay, when we play Rock Band, these are not our creations. We usually don't have public, even though it's more and more common to play video games with public, for example, YouTubers. But we are only doing for having fun. Of course, there's this competitive element over there because we have some points we have to achieve, and to achieve those points we will have to press the correct buttons, but Rock Band does not pretend to teach us music. So then we go to different kind of programs that they have the aim of making us better performers and letting people learn about how to play correctly the guitar. And if you see this, the image in the middle, it's quite similar from that in Rock Band. But what's the difference? In Rocksmith, which is this gamified learning guitar method, the objective is not that you have fun. The objective is that you learn to play correctly. So, what will be the main difference then? That gamification requires a set of clear and non-playful objectives, which means we want to play the guitar and do it well. Of course, we will probably be more motivated, more engaged if we have fun in the process. But there are a lot of people that study to play instruments, and they don't need all these kind of extra elements, points, badges, etc. They simply go to lessons, they play with other people, they rehearse at home because they have a further motivation, okay? These motivations, these goals are what can be benefit of gamification, which means when we add these game elements to the process of learning, we made it a lot of less dull for participants. For example, we can see it better if we talk about something which is less amusing than playing instruments, which might be arithmetic and algebra, as you can see in the image. In this platform, there are some points and rankings and progress elements. We will talk about all these in the next lessons that are put into a learning platform for people to get better at maths, because maths are not amusing by themselves usually. So if we see this platform, this is a gamified e-learning project. Sometimes we think that we can only talk about gamification if we have a game that people will play. In Rocksmith, the game to play guitar we were seeing, it's more obvious than in this other environment. But the fact is that, of course, you can make the game experience immersive, but it's not compulsory. You can add some elements of game design or a lot of elements of game design. It will depend on the kind of participants you are thinking about, the budget you have, your own technical skills if you don't have budget and you have to develop the project by yourself, and of course of your knowledge. So what we want to do through these next lessons is to give you a broad approach to all the game design elements, so you can choose which will be interesting to apply to your apps or your projects, and as long as you have budget, of course, and when it's the correct moment to choose to apply them. We're saying that gamification sets goals. These goals, as we were saying, must not be related with having fun, okay? We are going to gamify our app, for instance, because we want to have a faster increase of daily users, for example. or because we want people to pay for our app, or because we want them to play more regularly, or because we don't want them to abandon our app. Okay? All of these goals, as I was saying before, can benefit from the fact that you apply gamification. Having fun is not a goal. Having fun will be a technique we are using to achieve these goals. Okay? This acronym, SMART, goes for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based goals. Because this is the only way we can set our goals and then have a proper follow-up that will guarantee that all the techniques we are applying, all the effort we are putting is really giving some results. Okay? If we say we want to have more users, we are not being specific. We can say we want to have 100,000 users, or we want to increase our users in 10%. Then we are going to be specific. Then we can follow up the results and see if we are close to getting these results or not, if we are doing the right decisions or not, if we are putting the focus correctly or not. If we only say we want to increase users and we have 500 more users, we will not be able to say if those are enough or not to justify all the effort we have put into our app, into gamifying our app, for instance. Also, it's really important, as we are talking about follow-up, that all the goals we set are measurable. We can say we want our users to be more satisfied with our app. Of course we can say so, but how are we going to know? Then we can go to reviews in the stores of Google Play, Apple Store, and see, okay, we have 3 stars now, we want to have 4 stars. We will not be measuring the satisfaction, because a lot of people could be satisfied but not leaving a review of our app, but we are making sure that this satisfaction is translated into measurable goals. In this case, it would be the average score we have in these environments. Or we can make a survey and ask our current users about their satisfaction with our app, and then repeat this survey after we have included the gamification elements. This could be a way of having a previous measure so we can compare it, because again, if we don't have any previous results, it would be really hard for us to know if the increase we are seeing is enough or is not. So it's really important also to think about how are we going to measure the follow-up of our goals, not only at the end of the project, but also at the beginning, to have like a basis we can take as a reference for analyzing afterwards our results. Then we have to make sure that these goals are attainable, okay? We want to be ambitious, of course, but we don't want to be frustrated. This is something that it's really related with gamification, as we are going to see very soon. We have to find the correct balance between being motivated and being frustrated. If we set too high a goal, we would probably feel frustrated really easy, because, for instance, if I don't have any budget, I don't have an important partner that will be helping me with advertising my app, if I'm aiming to achieve a very concrete target in the population, I will probably not have 500,000 downloads, and it's okay. The important thing here It's to make sure that this increase we want to measure and we have set into a specific quantity, it's attainable, okay? Be ambitious, but be realistic also, okay? Then we should talk about the relevance of the goals, because sometimes we set goals that are not really important enough, but if they are more specific or more attainable or even easier to measure, they can distract us from the main focus. For instance, we were talking about satisfaction previously. Satisfaction of our users, it's a really important indicator. But for instance, in casual games, it's very studied that the normal lifetime cycle of the players goes around 4 months. That's why the big developers usually release a new title each 4-6 months, because their own players will be starting to get bored by the game they're already playing, and they will be searching for a new title to get entertained with. So it's the right moment to show them a new alternative and move these players to your new title. This is something that you could choose to fight, but it would be really hard, because it's sort of what we call before human nature. If we are most probably being bored in 4 months, don't try to make people play your game for a year, for instance. Try to make them playing for 5 months, or try to make them have a better experience, so that when you release your next title, they will be eager to try also your new application. But don't try to fight against the tide. When people are behaving in a particular way, we can try to modulate it, but we can't fight it, okay? And last but not least, our objectives should be time-based. This has a lot to do with the 2 first points. If we say we want to increase at 10% of our users, but we don't say how much time we have to do so, we cannot know if we are going through the correct path. We can suddenly realize that yes, we are increasing our users, but really slowly. And talking again about budget, then we can realize that at that pace, it would not be enough to satisfy the needs of our investor, for instance. So it's important to know how much time we are going to give ourselves to achieve the goal, and when this period ends, be ready to change our strategy and to take the decisions that should be made in order to change your strategy to cover your general goals in the end, okay? If we are talking about a successful app, and we realize that in the first months we're not having enough players, our players are not satisfied with the game, with the app, sorry, they tried for only one time, but then they never get back. They download it, but they uninstall it really easier. We have to think that we probably have a better approach if we take this out and start again with a new prototype than if we start trying to make it go up, because we will probably never have time to make it grow in a period that would be realistic again. If our own goals must be realistic in order to avoid feeling anxious or overpromising our investors, the same applies to the desired behavior of the users of our app. Here in this chart, you can see what the theorists have called the optimal experience. If you looked at this triangle, which is marked in a darker color, we are talking about flow when the level of the challenge matches the ability of the participants. We were saying that our goals should be attainable, but make us motivated. Same goes for the challenges inside our app. If we ask our participants to do a lot of actions and they are just trying our app, trying to discover if it's going to suit them, probably this goal will feel them exhausted because they will feel that they are being demanded a lot when they just wanted to take a look. Okay. On the other hand, if we start rewarding them for what they think are very simple actions, they will feel like we are patronizing them. When we face a challenge, the challenge must match our ability level. If the challenge is too easy, we will get bored. This is what happens with really easy tasks that make us feel distracted, and we are very easily bored by this kind of activities. On the other hand, if the challenge is too high, we can feel anxious and be worried about our own performance. So, to achieve this optimal experience, we must progressively increase the challenge as the mastery evolves. This is, for example, what happens with education. First, they teach us the numbers, then they teach us basic operations, and in the end, we start working on equations. If we started directly on equations, we would probably have a lot of school abandonment. So, if you recall something that has felt really hard for you, but you have felt very well when you have overcome it, we were talking, for instance, about mastering a musical instrument. You would realize that as you were learning, you felt completely engaged in the task. You felt stimulated because it required that you were really focused to do it well. But in the end, as you started to be better at your performance, you will probably start feeling relaxed, and in the end, you will probably realize that time has flown away. This is what experts describe as the flow experience. This is something that happens, as I was saying, when the challenges are adapted to our ability levels, but this is also something that happens when we are playing. Why is this? Because flow experience requires fun. Okay, to take people from this frustration feeling to this motivated, stimulated feeling of a really good challenge, a really well-balanced challenge, we are going to add some fun. But something we must understand is that not everyone finds fun in the same things. Here we have a first classification made by Nicole Lazzaro, which distinguishes four basic kind of fun. We have, on one hand, hard fun versus serious fun. We think that we have, hard fun versus easy fun. Some people are amused by these casual games that we were talking about before because they don't have to think. They can just switch off their brains and enjoy. This is something that works to, for instance, make our imagination work. If we start doing something really simple, we might suddenly discover that our brain, that we thought it was off, was in fact thinking about other problems it had to solve that were not in the main focus. This is why when we talk about creativity, a lot of experts suggest that we gather all the information, process all the information, try to get to the solution, and then forget about everything for a moment to find inspiration. Inspiration usually comes when we are at a bar with some friends, when we are having dinner, when we are almost falling asleep. This is because our brain sometimes needs to lose focus to find a solution. This is something that easy fun makes easier. If we make people distracted, like by random events, for instance, we can make them forget that they're being challenged. And this is something that could be used. On the other hand, some people are only appealed by really hard fun. If you know any hardcore gamers, they would probably say that casual gamers are not gamers at all, because they feel that mastery is what makes a game interesting. These kind of people are also the ones that are really ambitious at their job. They they usually like sports. They are hard workers. They enjoy being challenged. If we were saying that challenge that were too high were possibly frustrating for the less skilled participants, these kind of people are less anxious and more stimulated by hard challenges. On the other dimension, we can distinguish people fun and serious fun. People fun is the kind of fun we have when we interact with other people. Human beings are social by nature, so we enjoy conversating or simply being in company. So some people will only enjoy an activity if they are able to share it with others. These are the kind of people who would never go to the movies on their own, or they are always asking somebody to join them for something they want to do, because for these kind of people, half of the fun is sharing it and being able afterwards to talk about it, or simply creating shared memories. Other people are more individualistic, and these kind of people are usually more motivated by what we call serious fun. The thing is not that the activity is fun or social, but that it has a purpose, that it provides meaning. Um, this is, for example, the kind of people that make voluntary work, the kind of people who enjoy researching, the kind of people that are always trying to provide something to society by what they're doing. And if they feel what they're doing has a purpose, they will enjoy, even if the task is hard, even if it's boring. We are going to go through some examples of this motivation put into apps that have been very successful. So, if there are different people and they get fun from different places, we can get to divide the people we are targeting with our app into what we call here teams regarding what are they amused by. In this graph, you see what Bartle called the kind of players. He was studying mods, but this is a classification that has gone through gamification models, because it's really simple. It can be a lot more complicated, and we are going to a more sophisticated one in a minute. But in this one, we are going to distinguish two characteristics. Some people will prefer to interact, as we were saying about socializing, and some people would prefer to act, and some people would prefer to interact with the rest of the players, and some people would prefer to explore the world. If we take these characteristics and use them to divide players, we will get to these four basic characteristics, which are interacting with players, which is the main definition for socializers, acting on players, which is the main definition for killers, acting on world, which is the characteristic of achievers, and interacting with world, which is the characteristic of explorers. A lot of times we are prone to confuse killers and achievers. When we see somebody who is really competitive, we have to think, who are they challenging? They want to be better than themselves, or they want to be better than the rest of the people around them. If they want to win the others, we will be talking about killers. If they want to do a better performance that they have already done before, we will be talking about achievers. If we apply this to a school context, achievers will be those who are not satisfied by an A because they had an A+. Killers will be satisfied with a C as long as the rest of the class has got a D. On the other hand, we were talking about people fun. People fun is what distinguishes socializers. But we were saying that there are a lot of people that are more individualistic. Some people just want to play alone, and they are not interested in winning. They are not interested in their performance. They prefer to discover the landscapes, the elements, new surprises. These would be explorers. Explorers are in fact a really hard category to operate with when we talk about gamification, because they are free spirits, which we will go through in the next classification. As I was saying, this basic classification can be complicated and sophisticated to all extents. Here we have another classification that adds two new classes of players, but it's really similar from Bartels. Okay, I was saying that explorers were free spirits, and if you look at this, we are talking about autonomy. They want to as I was saying, discover, let their creativity flow. Okay, we have achievers that we already know them. We have players, which would be killers, sort of, and we have socializers. But if we get back to Nicole's four kind of funs, if you remember, there was this kind of fun, which was serious fun, and we were talking about meaning. Helping other people is something that it's not only something of socializers, but very specific of another kind of players that Marszewski calls philanthropists. These kind of people are really interested in serious fun, and they want to take care of other players. If we think about traditional role-playing games, we will be talking about healers, for instance. They want to protect their team, not only playing with others, but giving support to others. These are the kind of people that in social gaming are willing to exchange gifts to other. Maybe they stopped playing a lot of time ago, but they still send you some supplies for your farm or whichever game you're playing. And also, these are the kind of people we can motivate through serious fun. I was saying that we will go through some examples. This is very useful when we are thinking about apps for social change, because these kind of people are willing to try anything that can be useful for society as a whole. Socializers are more interested in what we call relatedness. They want to interact with others, but not necessarily to give. They might be competitive, they might be interested in status, for instance, or they might be killers, as I was saying. So what would be the difference here? A player is the one who is obsessed with rewards. They want to get everything the app is offering. If we have a set of badges, if we have some virtual money they have to achieve, if they have collections, if they have prizes, they will want to get them all. An achiever is not interested in prizes, but in mastery, in being the best they can be. If there's no reward in the end, it's okay. They only want to get better. So achievers are really interested in gamification because achievers are just opposed from free spirits. They are engaged in almost any gamified initiative they are shown. If we talk about the basic elements we will go through in the next lesson, they will be fine only with feedback. They only want to be better and better anytime. Okay, so if we have all these different kind of people, how can we be sure that our app includes elements to motivate all of them? If we think about these different profiles, we would probably realize that there are different social actions that are interested for them. On the left graphic, you have the Bartle simple classification, and you have a lot of social actions classified regarding what will be more interesting for these kind of people. Okay, so we were saying killers are interested in winning. If they're interested in winning, they will be more easily predisposed to cheat, for instance. An achiever which wants to get better and better will probably never be a cheater, because that will have no merit at all. So it goes against their own motivations. Here we also have something that has been really used in apps to engage explorers, which is reviewing, discovering, and curating. Some applications, like for instance Google Maps right now, have taken explorers as a way of reducing costs to add new information to their platform. If you have a lot of people that are seduced by the idea of discovering and sharing their discoveries with others, they're the perfect workforce for listing new restaurants, getting the information about their opening times, their better dish in the menu, etc. Socializers are the kind of people that have been mostly engaged with the overcome of Web 2.0, because what happens? Everything now has the possibility to like, comment, etc. They would probably never create content by themselves, but they love commenting on the content other people create and even giving their likes. So they are really easily triggered by this kind of simple mechanisms of notifications, suggestions, give your points here, rate this. On the other hand, when we talk about achievers, we'll probably have to create any challenge to make them engaged to our app. But this challenge, as we were going to see, can also combine these other elements like reviewing or commenting, because we can get different kind of people to do the same kind of behavior if we tell them differently. Okay? Here in the right, you see the user type analysis from Marczewski that uses these 6 characteristics of players, and also suggests you which kind of mechanics you will have to put into your project to make sure you are addressing the motivations of the most characteristic player you have. Okay, we will be working with stereotypes, so don't be afraid of being exaggerated when you diagnose the kind of user you are targeting your app. I have said mechanics, and by mechanics I mean the most basic elements in game design. Okay, all these social actions we have been seeing are like the small pieces we will be starting to build with. The way we combine these pieces will get us to dynamics, competition, motivation. If we think about sports, for instance, we will say we have teams, we will say we have points, we have a ball, we have limited time, and by this I could be referring to football, basketball, volleyball. The way we combine these elements will define which kind of sport we're playing, and these will be the dynamics. But also it's really different how we feel if we are seeing a match that is from our national team, or how we are playing when we are in an informal league. We play around with other neighbors, for instance. The kind of story that goes over these dynamics, the visual part of it, makes the aesthetic. And the combination of these 3 will define the user experience we have. But as I was saying at the beginning of this class, we will have a lot of time to discuss these different elements, so I don't want to stop on this at the moment. I just want you to think about how are we going to combine these elements to remember achieve our goals. As we were saying at the beginning of this lesson, gamification is always systematic. So it doesn't matter the kind of app we have, it doesn't matter the kind of framework we are going to use, it doesn't matter which kind of budget we have to follow these steps. First of all, start with the SMART objectives we have seen. Second, understanding our target users, and not only as a kind of players, as we have already seen, but also what do they have in common if they are interested in fashion, in sports, if they are, why does their lack of motivation come from? For instance, if we are using an app to try people adopting a healthy lifestyle, why are they not finding the motivation? Maybe they are lazy, maybe they are stressed and don't have time, maybe they don't have the knowledge of how to eat better or how to exercise themselves. Depending on this, we will have to work on one aspect or the other. So we have to do a very deep understanding of these users to be sure our gamification is focusing on the correct aspects. Then we will choose simple actions we can work through. For instance, in the maths e-learning project we saw, we could choose making exercises, reviewing class materials, doing group assignments, and we will try to motivate our users to do these simple actions. We will try to motivate them with game elements. And depending on all these factors, our objectives, our users, and which kind of actions we want to induce, we will find the tool. The tool can be a simple Excel sheet or a complete video game. As we were saying before, it depends on the budget, our own skills, but if we think about how we behaved when we were little, we'll probably remember in our classes in the kindergarten or even at home, our parents and teachers having a chart with our behavior during the week, and if we got enough points, we will get a small prize in the end. This is a very basic form of gamification that has been working for generations. So, which kind of attitude we want to motivate and which rewards are we going to give? This is what is important, not the fact that we are using them for one solution or another, okay? So don't worry because your app is really simple and you don't know how to make a game experience, because maybe you don't have to create a complete game experience. We will go through this in the next lesson. And in the end, we will choose how we are going to measure the results. Remember, we have to had thought about this before when we were talking about our objectives, because we want them to be measurable. But now that we know which kind of actions we are trying to promote, we will be more ready to know what are we going to measure and when. Apart of taking all these steps into consideration, we can use some of the frameworks that the experts have published to be sure we put all the elements into a systematic structure. First of all, we have a really simple one, but that helps us not to forget anything, which is the 6D model by Professor Werbach and Dan Hunt. And it goes through 6 simple steps. Defining objectives, delineate target behavior. Remember, this comprehends what do we want them to do and why aren't they doing. We will have to describe our players, and we will devise activity loops, which will be the starting point of the next lesson. We will add the fun over these activity loops, which must be the basic, and then deploy the appropriate tools. As I was saying, the tool depends on the rest of the elements. Never think before the tool and then the objectives. This framework is a little bit more complex, but it thinks a lot about the motivation structure, which is why I think it can be really useful for you. If you focus on the center of the image, you will see 6 elements. you will see we are thinking about skills, resources, and resistance of our player. And then we will go to the activity loop, which means when players make an action, they go through a system and receive a feedback. This feedback can be verbal, can be graphic, or can be in form of a reward. Okay, and to define this loop, we will have to think about our objectives, the kind of activity we are talking about, the outcomes we are expecting, and the player profile. This design has been thought mainly for designing software, gamified software. Is the framework by Kermer and Herger, and it's thought mainly for enterprise contexts, but it can be extrapolated to any other organization. Okay, so when you see enterprise, think about organization. In the center, as the name says, there's the player. The kind of motivation they will have will make us decide the mechanics and the mission. If you remember, we were talking about giving meaning. The mission will give meaning to anything the player does. Okay. On top of this cycle, we will take the measures and the management of the player behaviors. Of course, we have to take into consideration the legal framework, the ethics that are being implied, and the organization context. It won't be the same if we are talking about motivating employees, if they have been, if there has been a salary cut recently, or if they are simply motivated because they don't feel challenged anymore. Okay, so this is something that will be definitive to choose our activities, and of course keeping it fun. Octalysis is one of the most complicated frameworks, but it's really interesting to think about motivations. To distinguishes the actions, categorizing them around what they do with our brains. They can provide meaning, empowerment, social pressure, unpredictability, avoidance, scarcity, ownership, or accomplishment. Depending on the kind of player we have, again, we will have to choose which kind of elements we are going to use. This is a very complete and comprehensive map of the motivations of our players. It can be used instead of the Marczewski user type analysis tool, but in my opinion, it lacks of the context analysis. It doesn't give a lot of importance of what is key to us as designers. We will understand what will our app users want, but not what do we want as app developers. So if you opt to use this Octalysis framework, please be sure that apart from your user's motivation, you are taking into consideration which is important for you. Don't forget about the goals. On the other hand, we have the gamification model canvas, which is focused most on the organization we are applying gamification to. If you are familiar with business model canvas, it's an adaptation of this, so it's really similar to what we have to think about when we are testing a business model. In this case, we will put mechanics, components, and dynamics, and we will will have to be sure that they are adapted to the behaviors we want for our players. And the important thing here is that we are taking into consideration the costs and the revenues, which can be really, really useful if you have an investor that wants to see some guarantee that you want to apply gamification to make your app more interesting, and that you're not going over this because it's a fashion. Okay, so if you are going to present your gamification project to this kind of interlocutor, I encourage you to use this one. But on the other hand, this can make you forget the characteristics of the players. Of course, as a business model canvas, it has a main advantage that you will have all the information in just one piece of paper, which will help you not to lose the focus. And if you change anything, for instance, you realize that you don't want to acquire more players, more users for your app, but you want to focus on retention, then you will see all the things that were linked, so it will be easier to make a change. Whatever framework you choose, remember, you have to think about what do we want people to do, why don't they do it spontaneously, which are the things that are stopping them from our desired behavior, which rewards will be attractive from them, considering all the differences, and something we haven't talked about, but it has a lot to do with case studies class we have at the end of this course. If there is any other similar situation you can get inspiration from. Never be afraid of studying similar initiatives and copying anything you will find effective. We will be discussing all of these aspects regarding your projects.